Hello, friend. This is Tim Daniels, and we're going to spend some time with the Master. We call it Moments with the Master. You know, one of my favorite people in history is a woman by the name of Corrie ten Boom. Corrie was born in the Netherlands. She was Dutch, and she was raised a Christian. She and her family were watchmakers, and along with her father and her sister Betsy. Well, during World War II, when Adolf Hitler and the Germans took over all of Europe and they invaded the Netherlands, and Adolf Hitler was very cold, very cruel, and very heartless, and very brutal, and particularly toward Jews. He did not believe Jews were actually fully human. He saw them as mongrels, and he launched a vicious campaign to demean, destroy, and wipe out the Jewish nation. Now, Corrie was not Jewish, but there were a lot of Jews in the Netherlands. And then when they were being persecuted by the Germans, then what Corrie would do, she would take food, which was scarce. The Jews received no coupons to receive food, so she would actually take some of the food that she had for her family and give it to the Jews. Jews were being taken out of their homes. And finally, in Germany, Hitler actually wound up executing and murdering millions of Jews in order to wipe out their culture. Eventually, the Germans found out that what Corrie was doing also, she and her family, they were hiding Jews who were afraid of the persecution. And then, of course, she would later on write a book called The Hiding Place, where the Germans found out what she was doing and arrested she, her father, and the whole family, put them in concentration camps where they kept captives and they were brutally treated. Corrie and her sister went to a camp for women. And in that camp, they were humiliated. They were brutally and physically and sexually abused. They were stripped down, and the guards were cruel to them. So cruel that actually Betsy, Corrie's sister, died in the concentration camp. Corrie survived, and of course the Germans lost the war. Afterwards, she wrote that book, The Hiding Place, and she would go to different churches and she would speak about her experiences in the Nazi German concentration camps. After one speech on forgiveness, she was shaking hands with the people in the audience, and a man came up to her. He had a trench coat on, and he walked up to her, and she looked in that face, and the face just caused her blood almost to boil. She wrote about this incident in that book, and she recognized his face. It was the face of one of the German guards in the concentration camp she and her sister was in. He was one of the most brutal and cruel guards in the camp that her sister Betsy died in. And he walked up to her and said, "I enjoyed your message." It was a message on forgiveness. And then he did something else. He said, "I'm a Christian now, and God has forgiven me of all of my sins." And he stuck his hand out to Corrie to shake her hand. And he said, "Right now, I'm asking, can you forgive me?" Corrie in her book says that the blood seemingly froze in her body. She felt all the pain of those years of humiliation with her sister. She thought about her sister, and this man was one of the main ones. And she said God gave her the strength. And she finally, after a moment, lifted her arm and her hand, and she shook his hand and said, "I forgive you too." And they spoke for close to an hour. Corrie wrote about this story, and she said that one of the things that helped her to do this is that her sister Betsy told her before she died that there is no hole deeper than God's grace. And she said it was God's grace that gave her that ability. Friend, the best gift you can give anyone is the gift of forgiveness. The Apostle Paul wrote about it in Ephesians chapter 4, and he said it this way. In verse 31, he said, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger." And then in verse 32, he said, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ in God forgave you." Forgiveness. What a wonderful gift. Thank you, friend.